anyway. Okay, review time. This is going to be a doozy. I honestly think this one's going to be a doozy. So, okay. All right, so obviously this game hits the basic 3. I'm taking this headset off. It hits the basic 3. I mean, graphics are solid. The textures are really nice up close. They really are. You cannot deny it. Some of those things look like literally the stuff you can pick up off of your desk or your couch or your table, you know, or an office desk. They look, all the textures look good. The ships look good from afar. The way the light bounces off of things, the shadow looks good. Again, I'm running this on a max settings on a good PC. I have a few things turned off. That's at the beginning of the playthrough, so somebody can go back and look and see exactly what the settings are. I'm not going to go through it. So graphics on this, automatically they get a 1. It's, you know, it works. It's fine. You know, it does its job. The graphics look good. The faces are a little iffy, but I mean, hey, you know, you can't expect everything to be perfect. I think it's good. Actually, before we go any further, let me do this. Control C. Copy that. Now let me give my objective part. Let's see here, subjective. Just for funsies, just to see what I think, because I have to give like an objective opinion as well as a subjective one. Okay, sound was good. Space exploration, when you're out in space and just you hear nothingness, it sounded good. Cities sounded fine. They sounded lived in. Weapons sounded fine. It's Bethesda. They know what they're doing when it comes to sound. You know, these are the basic 3 that, like, if a video game does not meet, typically, you know, it doesn't do well, period. It's just one of those easy things that a game developer can get. So obviously a 1. Music's good. Very bombastic. What you doing, Chucky, huh? What you doing? Very bombastic when it needs to, very intense when it needs to, very atmospheric in certain areas where it needs to, obviously. These guys know what they're doing. Y'all can go OUT in a second. Daddy's working. Definitely the music fits wherever you're going. Polish. So we had one issue at the end of the game. There's definitely a few bugs here and there. But I ran into nothing game breaking throughout the entire game. I didn't get soft locked. I didn't, there was nothing I ran into that I couldn't recover from, you know, without a quick save or anything like that. There was no, because there were soft and hard locks in Skyrim that existed that would prevent console players from progressing. So with that being said, I didn't experience that here. So on merit, I have to give that a 1. Even though there's a few things that are a little finicky here and there that I don't like personally, it's still, I got from beginning to end without anything crazy happening. Okay, the story. So we're focusing on the main story here. I didn't do a lot of the side content. You know, I'm sure there's a ton of it, but for my sanity, I just did the single player content, or not the single player content, the main story content. The story of this grand mystery, going through the universe, finding these artifacts that eventually lead into the multiverse. Pretty all right. You know, I think it's you have to think about the setting. The setting is Earth's gone. We are still humanity. We haven't ran into any other sentient life forms. And, you know, we have gravity drives that let us travel through planets. That's kind of the setting. So in terms of the universe here, you get a device that lets you access multiple universes. That's pretty substantial for Discovery. They didn't really emphasize it that much. It's mainly the constellation. It seems to be like they're the only ones that really care about it in a sense, you know. there's no other agencies after the Constellation group. There's nobody that's really caring other than the Starborn from the multiverse. But it does fill its purpose very well. It gives the player agency. It gives them a reason to be doing what they're doing. It gives them a heading of what they should be doing. If they ever get lost and just start doing side missions, they still have that to fall back on. So yeah, obviously that gets a 1. Effectiveness and engagement of gameplay. So this one's going to be... Okay, let me think about this one. It's a first-person shooter, is what it is, with some magic. You can do melee combat, which I don't know why you would. I'm sure there's crazy benefits to it if you chose to go that route. But it's a space game. I would expect a few more things. The 0G combat, I think there's only like 1 or 2 instances where we had that. And I feel like there could have been more with that, maybe more experimented upon, but they didn't. Regardless, going through places, killing all the enemies and looting, that is the gameplay loop. You can watch Joseph Anderson's video on Fallout 4 about that. He does a great job of highlighting the gameplay loop itself. He's a great dude. He does awesome reviews. I look up to him. So it's that same gameplay loop. You go into an area, you kill all the bad guys, you loot it. You go to the next room in that area, you kill those bad guys, and you loot that room. Then you go into the next room in that area. It's the same loop. It's always the same loop. That's how Bethesda games are built. They threw in a few puzzles here and there. I wasn't a fan of the lockpicking. I understood it, but to me it seemed tedious. Better than the Skyrim lockpicking. I think we're all tired of that. The lockpicking is just hard in general to do as a video game minigame. Let's see here. Persuasion is just persuasion. I kind of like how they have it set up though. There's a point value associated with each option, and depending on which option you pick, can either get you the points you need or not. And you have to really read the conversation and kind of know the person a little bit to really effectively persuade them. Additionally, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but on top of that, you have instances where persuasion options change, and that's something. It's a little annoying because that tells me that at random your persuasion options are picked, and that will lead me to believe, I don't have any evidence of this, but that would lead me to believe that you can mess up a persuasion attempt just because you got a bad roll on what persuasion options you got. That seems like a possibility. I'm not sure if it is, but it looks like one. Unless there's a mitigation that I don't know about. I didn't get much into the crafting. The crafting's pretty much exactly like Fallout 4's when it comes to crafting individual items. Outposts seem very similar to Fallout 4. Again, I barely dabbled into that. Barely dabbled into ship creation. So I can't pass judgment on those effectively. Ship combat in space feels like ship combat in space. With what limited ships I had, I'm sure that somebody could get a crazy max level ship and do amazing things in it. But with what I experienced, it just fit the bill. It just fit the bill for space combat. Yeah, I mean, there's not much you can do with there. Going back into combat on the first person view of just, walking around, I kind of wish there was instances where you could fly around a space station, because you do have a booster pack. I kind of wish they experimented that 3D space a little bit more, not just in 1 or 2 levels, but maybe, being allowed to go outside your ship while you're flying in space and, just looking at it. And I mean, they have a photo mode, but I think like going out there in person is probably a little bit different. There's one thing I was going to say, I forgot. Damn. What else was it? What else was it? Let's see, persuasion, lockpicking, combat, ship flight, fast traveling. So there's been a lot of I don't even know what to say, hubbubaloo on the internet about fast travel in general in the game. The issue is not fast travel. That's not the issue. The issue is how much of a headache it is to fast travel and how much you are taking out of the immersion experience to fast travel. I think that's the issue. And there's no in-between space where you can stop in between two systems where you're just out drifting in space just looking for random events, like maybe an asteroid or just something just out of the ordinary. Something always has to happen next to a planet. That's kind of where I'm at with it, and that's kind of how I feel about it. Just there's something wrong. I can't put my finger on it, but that's really my last gripe with that. But other than that, I mean, I have to give it a 1 because it is fun, it is engaging, it does stimulate you to try to progress and be better. 100%. Replayability in post game, this is obviously a 1. I mean, there's nothing I can say about it that that doesn't answer the questions automatically or defends itself automatically. You're going to be working on your skills, you're going to be working on your ship, you're going to be working on your outposts, you're going to be trying to fill out the map. That's all without mods. I'm basing this on if it doesn't have mods. So there's a lot for you to do if you want to do it. This was a game built with longevity in mind. They knew who they were appealing to. They know their name, what they're known for, and that's for their games to be played for a long period of time, even without mods, or just have enough in the game to do that. I'm sure there's more quest lines, more factions, and fun stories that I didn't experience because I'm trying to play this for a short review here. So yeah, that gets a 1. Length of the main story, I do think it's a little too long, just a little bit. But at the same time, realistically, nobody is playing this game and only doing main story. At some point, somebody will deviate from the path at least once to go do something else. So you can't really judge the length of the game on what you do individually. You can only base it on the main story. And the main story, I'm sure if I just focused on that, I think it would just be just right. I think it would. Because the fact that you're doing other things in between the story, it gives you a break from the story. Therefore, the story doesn't seem as long as you think it is. It doesn't seem as long as it actually is. So I think it's just right because of the nature of how the game is designed. Environments. So what do we have? You can board ships, you have cities, you have small outposts, you have ruins, and you have planets. And like the ruins and outposts are on those planets. This one's going to be hard to say because I understand the setting of the game. The setting of the game is like humans haven't expanded and occupied every planet on the world, in the universe. They're in the process of doing that. With that being said, however, when you land on a planet, it's one big dust ball, or it's one big ice heap, or it's one big something, one bbig insert thing. One big mudland, one big ice ball, one big dust pit, one big city, and you don't get to really explore the entire planet either. You don't, and that's one huge knock on it. You don't get to explore the entire planet. My dogs are playing in the background. They're fine. This is how they play. I'll calm them down if they start acting a fool. So, with that being said, the environment, let's see, and you also have space stations, which there's not really many you explore. You know, there's facilities, but with that, because of the idea is to explore all these planets throughout the system, you know, it falls short. I think objectively it falls short because it has that Breath of the Wild feel where you can go anywhere, but just because you can go anywhere doesn't mean there's going to be anything there when you get there, if that makes sense. And that's how a lot of these planets feel. Yeah, they have ruins, they have like a little dungeon here and there, but none of these planets like really stand out. They're just kind of there, and I feel like Bethesda did it that way. So modders can come in and change things and add to those planets. Which, if you know me, when I do these reviews, I try to leave out, I pretend the internet does not exist for that reason. So, based off of that, I think I'm justified in objectively giving the environments a 0. Just because they are overall boring, they don't give you much of a reason to go there. There's no planet you can go to and be like, oh, this is Ilum 3. Or, you know, there's nothing that makes each planet stand out from each other. And there's no biomes on each individual planet. They are all the same. They're all a dust bowl. They're all a swamp. They're all an iceberg. It's all the same. And that's a huge detriment. But they built the planets that way. That way modders can pick out a certain planet and just put whatever they want to on it. On top of that, they have these planets that you can only explore so many zones on those planets, and you can only explore so much of that zone or else before it blocks you off. I've seen the images online. Additionally, you have these environments, and that's why they don't put the rover in the game. There's no moon rover or anything like that because players will go from one end to the other pretty quickly. And that's unfortunate, but like this is a game where they looked at it and said, hey, let's make this with mods in mind, which is the worst idea you can have. Mods are a supplement. They're not to be part of your basic formula. So, based on all the things above, this is the second review today too, holy shit. So based off of all the things listed above of the objective review, graphics gets a 1, sound gets a 1, music gets a 1, polish gets a 1. I'm sorry, I've jumped the gun. I forgot to do the entire package. The entire package put together, sound, graphics, music, everything, it gets a 1. It's fine. It works together as a game. Usually you have to fail about 2, 3, or maybe even 4 of the listed above for the entire package to be a 0. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Graphics overall is a 1. Sound is a 1. Music is a 1. Polish is a 1. Except for that one little thing at the end, but I'll let that slide. Story is a 1. Effectiveness, engagement of the gameplay is a 1. Replayability and post-game is a 1. It's just right, and the length is a 1. The environments are not that special. They're not that good, so it's a 0. The entire package gets a 1 once it's all put together. So objectively, I think this game is a 9 out of 10. I won't give you a price point. That's up to you. I would say wait until a Game of the Year edition comes out before you make any type of purchases for it. Now onto the subjective one, where this is purely my opinion, and I'm not going to get a lot of love from this. A lot of people are going to dislike this. So for subjective, graphics definitely gets a 1. Let's see here. Graphics gets a 1. Sound gets a 1. Music gets a 1. Bugs. This gets a 0 for me because the last thing I'm not even including, there's a lot of issues where, you know, I'm mid-conversation and the models are refusing to move their feet to turn around to face me to talk to me. They'd rather turn their heads 180 degrees to speak with me. Camera angles were weird in conversations. Clipping was an issue. It was just enough to break immersion on top of the already broken immersion from having to go into the menu so often. So that's really that. Main story wise for me, it's okay. It's nothing special. Like, I hate it when like media does this. They try to make something seem as this grand epic thing when it's really not. It's just an average thing. It's an average story, but it does the job. So that gets a 1 from me. They had the conversations nailed in Fallout 4. What happened? That's another thing. The conversations in Fallout 4, your main character was voiced. You know, that's one thing I'm really surprised they didn't do. They didn't have the main character voiced in this until like you got to the end, but that doesn't count. But you're right, they did have the conversations nailed in Fallout 4. It worked. So I kind of elaborated on the effectiveness engagement of gameplay. It's a lot of gunplay that we're used to. They didn't really reinvent the wheel or really even improve it. With ground first-person combat, there was nothing different about it. You know, that's really it. Space flight, again, didn't feel special. You almost didn't have to have it. Like, it kind of honestly felt like a waste of time to fly around in space and shoot things. Like, it was kind of more or less filler content almost. You know, yeah, you can hail ships, you can board them, but it's the thing is like they didn't develop enough into it that it became useless when they could have done a lot more with it. And so I think that goes back to the fast travel issue with it, because there's so much fast travel in the game. There's nothing that you can really do in space, and even they know that. So that's why they made fast travel so easily and readily available. The mini games, I mean, I wasn't a fan of the lock picking one or the digipick. I like the name digipick, but the thing itself got old after about 5 or 6 of them. You were kind of over it. So it does nothing special. It suffices, but at the same time, other games do it better. I feel like Fallout 4 does it better. You know, that's really it. I'm trying to think of anything that I can think of to change my mind before I give it a point or not. You have outposts, but all those do is get you resources, so you can build more outposts and upgrade your ship. I kind of wish ship upgrading was dealt or done differently than I know you guys. You just give me 1 minute, okay? Give me 1 minute. I kind of wish it was a little bit different. Definitely wish it was done a little bit differently. It could have been done better. It shouldn't be locked behind a skill point. I know, buddy. I know what you need. Just give me a minute, buddy. Give me a minute. Get your head out of my chair. I mean, unfortunately, I have to do this, but I have to give the effectiveness engagement of the gameplay 0 for me, because it's the same. It's just the same. You know, even with the space magic, it's just the same. I know what y'all need. Give me 1 more minute, I promise. Replayability, I mean, I have to give it credit for replayability in post-game. You're going to play this long after you beat the main story. I mean, you might not even beat the main story, which this contributes to that. So yeah, it gets a 1. Length, just because, like I explained earlier, because of the nature of the game, of the main story, you know, it's kind of hard to judge that. So I, like, out of principle, I have to give that a 1, or else I'm just being facetious. Environments, I mean, I didn't like any environments. There were some cool cities that they put into the game. There really were, but beyond that, there was nothing special. There really wasn't. I mean, the Neon City stuck out to me, rather, but the main city, I kind of forgot what it's called. Because of the fast travel, you're not able to learn about your city. That's the biggest thing about this game, is the fast travel ruins it, and people don't understand that. That's what's killing me, is that the fast travel ruins it so much. Because when you fast travel to Whiterun, you don't fast travel to somebody's house or to a shop. You fast travel to either Whiterun gates or the Dragon's Reach. It's one of those two. You don't fast travel into the Companions Guild. You know, here you do, it feels like. And so there's no coherency on like where you are, what you're doing, what the environment looks like unless you take your time. But are people going to take their time? No, they're not. They go in. I'm sorry, I'm starting to get angry about it because it's like I see people defend it when it's it's a poor design choice. It really is to allow this much fast travel so freely. Unless you're over encumbered like I was the entire game. But yeah, the environment's nothing special, just a bunch of rocks. Which realistically, if we're being realistic, that's what space is, a bunch of rocks with no life or anything on them. I mean, even if you look at Mars and the moon, it's all the same red and white rock. But the planets that do have life on them, they all look the same. And you can't explore an entire planet because of the way the game's designed, so it's stupid. Rant over on that. So here's going to be the rough one for me. Because I did not buy this game. I got it from the Xbox PC Pass. So with everything put together, graphics, sound, music, you know, solid, just solid. They met the minimum requirement for my requirements, which are pretty high in the first place. Polish is a no-go. Too many bugs from Bethesda. They need to stop relying on their modders to fix their problems. They need to grow up and do it themselves. Sorry. Story, it's okay. It suffices. You know, it's an interesting concept. The weird magic stuff was kind of stupid. In my opinion, the space magics, it was dumb. They could have gone without it. I'm about to dock a point too. The more I think about it, the more I don't like it. But I can't, well, I'm just basing it off the main story too. Because the issue is that this is a human story, is what it is, and that humans are boring. If we've learned anything from RPGs and fantasy stories, humans are boring and annoying. They're not fun. It's really just not. It's really not. Okay, we'll skip that for a second. Let me think about it a little bit more. Effectiveness engagement is 0 because it's just your it's just standard. It doesn't nothing special. Even the powers are kind of boring. Like the one power I had, but it's trying to tell it. So here's my issue: it's trying to tell a human story, but it's giving us space magic. Either do low fantasy, keep us human, or do high fantasy, give us some fucking aliens too, instead of natural flora and fauna. You know, like if you're going to give us space magic, give us actual aliens. Either keep the story vanilla and human, or keep it or make it fantasy and give us the powers. They're trying to do both and it doesn't work. Like I'm baffled that people like who built this and thought this was a good idea. Anyway, replayability post game. Yeah, it's going to be solid. It's going to be solid even without the mods. Length, it's fine. Environments is a 0, but I think the entire package, honestly, I have to give it a 0. Because once you put everything together, in my mind, like I have high standards. Like I didn't buy this game. There's a reason why. This is going to be a reason. Because everything put together doesn't make sense. That's all it is. Everything put together does not make sense. You know, if you're your average gamer who wants a Skyrim in space, sure, they'll want to hear the 9 out of 10 rating. But for me and my fans and people who respect my opinion, my subjective opinion and not my objective opinion, you know, they'll understand where I'm coming from. So, with that being said, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a 6 out of 10 on the CarmelOP rating. That's really it. It's mid. It's mid. By the way, a 6 out of 10 is still pretty solid. Like a bad game for me is like a 4, 3, 4, or 5. So this is barely above a bad game. This is a mid game. Okay? This isn't that bad of a score, a 6 out of 10. But it is. I think this is the longest I've spent on a review because I've had to think about it in 2 different ways. Honestly, if their environments mattered more, it would be a 10 out of 10 on the objective, and then probably be a 7 out of 10 on mine. But the environment sucks so much, and the fast travel takes you out of it. But yeah, my rant's over. And on that note, we are going to go into the community screen